Welcome, I'm RJ. In the podcast about why the ram was chosen for my logo, this is another reason it was selected. I mentioned in another podcast that I wanted material things in this life. I did not want marriage or children. My plan was to go to college. However, that did not happen because my parents did not have the money, nor did I. I relocated and worked for the federal government in the identification department after high school. During orientation, an agent went over the rules to keep us safe, and coming from the deep south, where I grew up in a small Gullah and Geechee community, I always felt safe. My two roommates and I came back to our apartment and had my key to open the door. When I pushed the door partway open, something was blocking it, so we ran down the hallway to the elevator. And when we got off, we ran into three young men who had served in the military. We were in a state of panic and they asked us what was wrong. We told them, and they went back upstairs to our apartment to check it out. When they returned, they said no one was there, and they closed the door and came back to the lobby where we were. They became our big brothers, and they worked in the same government building where we were working. Sometimes I had to go to another unit to help. There I met a young man who became friendly. In about 2 or so months, he asked me to go to a movie with him, and I said, okay. He was not wearing a wedding band, and there was no indentation or coloration on his finger. I did not date, and he said we would be two friends hanging out. I told him the building where I was living, but not the apartment, and I said I would meet him in the lobby. About 10 minutes, I was supposed to meet him in the lobby. One of the three young men came upstairs, bought a letter folded in half, and handed it to me. I asked what this was, and he said to read it. I read it while walking down the hallway to my bedroom to get my purse before going to the lobby. In the letter, it says WH is married, and it was signed by all three of them. I left to go to the lobby, and my date rolled up a few minutes later. He came in, and we spoke and walked out to his car. He opened the door for me, and I did not let him close it. He went around and got into the car, and I asked him, "Are you married?" He looked surprised and did not answer me at first. I asked again, a little louder, and he said, "I am separated from my wife." I told him that there will be no more conversation or chit chat with me. Sometimes I still had to go to the unit where he worked. He tried to carry on a conversation several times, but it fell on deaf ears. I was glad when my supervisor said in a meeting that the job I was doing would be done by computers in the future. So I changed my shift to evening and enrolled in a computer learning school to learn computer programming, and I had no more contact with him. About a year or so later, God had another plan for my life that was not in my plan. I will talk about that in another podcast. By the way, I ran across Tony Gaskins, a counselor on YouTube, and one day I stopped in to listen in on one of his podcasts and what he had to say about men. I agree with 99% and 1% of what I heard. I did not agree with the rest because a man wrote that book of the Bible, not Jesus. So if you need dating advice, check out his podcast, check him out. I have a soul tide of 1 year of dating, and God gave us 47 years before he was called home. Please join me in my podcast as I give my testimony about what the Lord has allowed me to see. If this episode blessed you, be sure to subscribe and share it with a friend. Until next time, stay alert, walk in authority, and remain in Christ. Please join me on my next podcast where I will continue to tell what the Lord has allowed me to see through my spiritual eyes about monitoring spirits.